name is Janet Matthews, and I'm the daughter of Robert Douglas Moffat, who's the grandson of John King Moffat, who built this lovely cottage behind me called Rothsay on the Springside shore of Penlake. I am with the Penlake Historical Committee, and we are doing interviews of people and their memories of the lake and how people came to Penlake. How was it that our family originally came to Penlake?
Well, the early turn of the century, they were coming up to Ferryport, a resort on Ferry Lake, and this would be around 1903, I would think. And one of the brothers, I think it was probably F.W., rode from
F.W. Moffat?
F.W. Moffat. All the Moffat boys went by their initials, and F.W. is Frederick William. And I think he rode from Ferryport through the canal into Penlake and saw this new subdivision which had been created by Mary Ennis. And it was the first subdivision in Franklin Township. And he saw the lots and liked the area and the outlook and went back and told his brothers, and eventually they all came over to Penlake, looked at the land available, and around 1905, 1904 they decided to buy some of the lots that were left at Springside.
Did all 5 brothers buy in the subdivision?
3 brothers, F.W., Frederick William, Thomas Lang, T.L., and my grandfather, John King, J.K. All bought lots next to each other. And then down the shore, not in the subdivision, they bought a piece of land, put it in the name of the Moffat Stove Company. It was subsequently transferred to A.B. Moffat, Alfred, Bryce Moffat, and then at a later date Alfred Bryce went over to the other side of the lake to a cottage now owned by Alec Armstrong, and he sold the cottage that had been in the name of the Moffat Stove Company. Sold it to his youngest brother, C.L., Charles Lang Moffat.
Are all the descendants of those brothers still on the lake?
I believe, well, certainly in the cottage, the original cottages, I'm the only one that has one of the original cottages. T.L.'s cottage was sold, but his daughter, Beatrice Lang, who married Howard Charlton, bought property on the other side of the lake and built a log cabin. His son Lang built a cottage on the other side of the lake. And really all the descendants of T.L. are still on the lake. I'm the only one of the J.K.'s. There used to be about 52 Moffat families on the lake. So it's sort of intimidating to a lot of the people.
For those people that are listening to this and are interested in a bit of the Moffat history and how everybody fits together, you wrote a book recently.
I wrote a book called The Moffats of Weston, and it has all the family trees up to probably 2010.
And the Moffat brothers had come over and started the Moffat Stove Company, first in Markdale and then in Weston.
That's correct, yes.
From near Glasgow.
Yes, Hutchison Town.
So what's the name of your cottage?
My cottage is called Rothsay, Rothesay, after the Scottish summer resort just outside of Glasgow on the Isle of Bute. And Rothsay was an incredibly popular spot for tourists to come from Glasgow. And so they chose that as the name for the cottage. Next door, the F.W. Moffat cottage is called Corallan, named after a lovely waterfalls just outside of Glasgow. And the T.L.'s cottage was known as Crossford, where the Moffat family lived in Scotland.
Uh-huh. And these three cottages are still one next to the other.
Still one next to the other.
And I recall that Corallan, the original cottage, was actually moved.
The original cottage was lowered off the hill down to the ice, hauled across the ice and down the shoreline, and restated and given to Jim Moffat, who is the son of F.W. That cottage is now owned by John and Debbie Hay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are your earliest memories of coming up to the lake? You're now 88 in 2014, and you would have come up here, you were born in 1926.
I don't have early recollections, because the first time I came up here would have been in my mother's arms shortly after I was born, 1926. We used to do a lot of boating into other lakes on picnics.
And what boat did you use for that?
Well, mostly we would go in our Ditchburn boat and go into Mary Lake and Ferry Lake. And annually, for a number of years, the Moffat family rented the Big Chief, big boat from Powell Point. To have a 1-meter diving board, and we had I think a 3-meter diving board, and we had a diving tower. Did some water skiing down there, which was a lot different from the way people water ski today. First water skiing, was started by Clark Hill. The skis.
And he was married to a Moffat, right?
He was married to Moffat, yes, Eileen.
From the C.L. Moffat family?
From the C.L. Moffat family. Before water skiing, we used to aquaplane, and that was a big board fastened to the boat by ropes, and it would pull the aquaplane, and then we'd try to stand on the aquaplane and go behind the boat. And then we went into water skiing and tried exactly the same technique, where the ropes were fastened to the front of the skis, and then continued and fastened to the end of the boat, so the boat pulled the skis. And we would hold on to a handle that went to the tips of the skis. Not at all like they do now, and it was almost impossible to ski. It was very difficult.
What kind of boats did you ski behind? Were they the inboards or outboards?
The very first time, Clark Hill's boat, a Dodge, I believe.
An inboard?
It was an inboard. And yes, he really started water skiing in Canada. It would be early 1930s, I guess. We bought a gaff rig Lakefield sailboat, and yes, sailed that a lot. every day that we had good wind, I'd be out sailing, and Ian Eastmere would have his sailboat, the ebb tide, and we'd quite often race around. Yes, a lot of sailing. Eventually, sailing became an event in the regatta, and all different kinds of sailboats would go out, different class sailboats. And my father always wanted to have a single class sailing race where there was the skill of the skipper rather than the design of the boat was the main feature of the race. And so eventually we started an albacore sailing race, and it became very popular. We'd have maybe a fleet of 20 albacores on the lake. We sailed every week, every Sunday. We had a July series of races and an August series of races. We'd end up with Champagne Regatta, which was the last sailing race of the year. Very popular. And we'd have invitational sailing races where the Lake of Bays would bring all their boats over from the Lake of Bays Sailing Club and Port Sydney.
The albacores.
Albacore, all albacores.
And your father gave a trophy, or you did a trophy?
Our family gave the memorial trophy for the albacore race.
Which is still given out this day too.
Still given out, but certainly it's gone from a fleet of 20 to maybe a fleet of 1. It's very, very sad.
Yes.
But the older sailors were getting too old and didn't want to dedicate every weekend to sailing. The younger crowd were into windsurfing, and so albacore racing just sort of slowly died away.
Too bad.
Very sad.
Tell me a little bit about Springside Dock and its purpose originally.
Well, its original purpose was for a place for the Algonquin to dock, because all the supplies and early days the people came to their cottages on the Algonquin. And a dock was built by the community, which was the Springside Dock, and passengers would be let off at Springside and they'd walk along the common path to their cottages. The mail would be dropped off at Springside Dock and sorted by one of the cottagers, and we'd pick up the mail at Springside. It was, yes, a center place for us to go for the Algonquin to dock.
And that was before roads were available to get to your cottage?
That's right.
And the Algonquin was a steamship?
Oh yes, yes, a wonderful old steamship.
And it came from Huntsville through Fairy Lake?
It would meet the morning train from Toronto and then travel from Huntsville through Fairy Lake, the canal, and Penlake. And on Penlake it would stop at, Deerhurst. It would stop at some of the cottages
Powwow Point?
along the way that had deep enough water. At Powwow it would go in frontwards but couldn't leave the dock going forward, so it would back up and then continue its journey forward. I remember one year we were fog bound in Huntsville.
Who's we?
Ian Eastmere and myself.
And you'd gone in a little boat?
Gone in by my little skiff, And as I say, we got fog bound, so we didn't know what to do. We couldn't get home, we couldn't see. So we decided to spend the night in Huntsville. We climbed aboard the Algonquin and slept in the lounge. In the morning, the boat got ready, we got off. We tied ourselves to the back of the Algonquin by the painter at the bow and had the Algonquin tow us through the fog from Huntsville, through Fairy Lake, through the canal, docked at Deerhurst, and it was still fog bound. Nobody knew we were there. Then it went into Powwow, and then Powwow, because we were behind the boat, and the boat had to back up to continue its course, it backed into our boat, and we were trying desperately to push ourselves away from the Algonquin's stern. It was really quite a terrifying moment because the Algonquin's stern sloped quite drastically into where the propeller was, and we could see the huge propellers swirling around, and we were sure it was going to back right over us, but then it stopped its backward going and continued forward. Then the purser discovered us and untied the rope and threw it at us, but by then the fog was starting to lift and we were able to make our way safely home. If any of the cottagers wanted the boat to stop at their place, they'd hoist a white flag. That would indicate that there were passengers
to board.
To board. Yes, because that was the beginning of the Springside subdivision. That was started by Mary Ennis. It was 1903 it was registered. So my guess is that, yes, that would be the beginning of the path from the Springside dock.
So it's 110 years old.
And we also had a community punt, because some of the materials that would come in on the Algonquin couldn't be really easily carried along the path. So we'd load the punt and move a lot of the heavy material down to the cottage docks by punt.
My understanding is that the Springside Cottagers Association is either the oldest or second oldest cottagers association in Ontario.